attract the audience to the site. So some of the advisory services we have obviously speak to security programs, how to develop them, how to, execute on them, things like that. And then producing a marketing version of that guide to go out to people was really influential. The second example I have is a more technical example, right? So working with a security analyst at my firm to kind of talk about something that they did. So one of the things that we do is we perform monitored managed detection and response, MDR. And so obviously that's not always like the sexiest topic, right? But oftentimes they're monitoring the network, finding things and preventing worse things from happening, right? So that's a business use case. That's something that we market to all of our clients, right? Is that having MDR is going to keep you safer. But how do we really do that for the technical audience? And so one of those ways is working with a security analyst. And so here you can see how our company foiled an IAB, and it was super technical. It's actually on a different part of the website that's for threat intelligence and kind of speaks to really the evangelism of security that we have at our company. And so it's part of the branding, and security can be part of any brand at any company, right? So whether you're a company that might be like, fintech, right? Security is important to them. They want to know that their financial information is protected. So creating content for the website that speaks to your product or services security is also important. Additionally, when it comes to events and webinars, I've worked on a couple of projects that deal with that really help the technical resources expand and elevate their kind of presence online. So one of them is whether you prefer in-person or virtual interactions, there are a lot of opportunities. The first example I have here is a social media post of one of my coworkers, Kyle Norby, and I wanted to shout him out because he actually inspired me to submit my speaking proposal for this conference. Just seeing him kind of give back to his community, share his domain knowledge, and really interact with everybody inspired me to kind of think, what can I do? What can I share with my community? And something that I'm super passionate about is really elevating the presence of the technical resources within our company. I don't really have as much drive to just promote the products or the services. It's really who's performing those products and services. And if it's something that they're really smart in, we should be promoting that. And a lot of marketing departments want that. They just oftentimes don't know that you're interested in doing that. So definitely look for, if you have an opportunity that you're looking at for a conference or a call for papers, like something I've done is, just help sharpen up the pitch a little bit on how they want to present something, right? Polishing a slide deck for them. And then additionally, like they'll promote your talk on their corporate channels. So it's a great way for you to kind of get exposure to the business audience and grow your network. So the second example I have is a SOC Radar webinar that we did. That's a partner that we use for CTI. And so what was great is I worked with our partner to create a webinar that spoke to their end of year report. So they have like a tool for CTI. And then I brought in our practitioner who uses the CTI to really talk about that. So again, it's kind of seeing like where the fits are, what makes sense. And it ended up being like a really great presentation that he got a lot of kudos for from leadership as well. So if you're looking to elevate, again, your profile within your own organization and show that you're a team player, it's a great way to kind of think around what other companies or vendors do you work with and how can you best partner with them. Another case study, this one is not for the faint of heart, is public relations and news media. So a fun fact about me is I actually used to work in journalism. And so I used to be a reporter myself, but we're always looking for things, positive news coverage, as well as timely sources for things. And so getting free media, positive news coverage is always a top priority for marketing. We love getting our name out there without having to pay a cent for it. And so oftentimes you'll see things, if you work in marketing, that are like, hey, we need someone to speak on a recent cyber attack, or we need to speak to somebody who knows a lot about financial services security or manufacturing security. And you can be a source for that article. They just need to know, hey, these are my areas of expertise. I have an opinion about this. I would love to speak about this. And then they can either do the outreach to journalists or journalists can reach out to you. It just depends on how your organization works. But this is another great way for both the business and you to get your name out in front of people. So here are a few recommendations for how to start this journey, because there's a lot of different ways you can approach it. The first one is don't be shy. is really hard. I'm shy myself. I'm an introvert. I don't know. There's a lot of organizations where people kind of see sales and marketing as these people who just go out and they're super social and they'll talk to anybody. That's actually not the case. As a marketer, I'm actually pretty shy, pretty introverted, but introducing yourself can be the first step. A good way, depending on the size of your organization, is just to let your manager know that you have a will or a drive to connect with marketing and see where there's opportunities, and they can introduce you to the person that's closest to you. For example, it might not be brand marketing, it might be someone in product marketing, something like that. So definitely don't be shy, introduce yourself, look for resources within your organization. The first step will also be to determine your goals, your bandwidth, and your comfort level. It is really important that you know where your comfort level lies and what your goals are. And it's going to depend, right? So for example, when I work with some analysts, they don't want their name on anything they produce. They just want to be a team player, right? They want to collaborate. They want the idea that the leadership knows who they are and that they want to work together. Other people are kind of like, hey, I would love to be a security influencer. I would love to be a voice online, right? And so knowing that and kind of communicating that helps me know how far to push the content. Do I want to put their face on it? Do I want to put their contact information on it? Knowing that is really helpful, as well as your bandwidth. This is very depending on your company and your organization's resources. You might be doing this as like a side project, right? So knowing and being able to tell the marketing professional, hey, I really only have like an hour a week to work on this with you, is really helpful for them to know, okay, this person, I can contact them, maybe have a standing meeting with them once a week to kind of go through things versus, I might only have 2 seconds to look at this, or I can review this in 30 minutes. So just know your bandwidth, know what you want to take on top of your regular job. Because a lot of the times this will just be a passion project for you within your organization before you kind of prove out the use case and kind of create a schedule and a rhythm to it. And again, your comfort level are, letting the person know, but also knowing your own comfort level. For example, I'm stepping out of my comfort level by speaking publicly. This is my first time doing it. But, if that's a goal for you, do it, right? But if you're someone who just wants to start editing content or writing it and just doing things on paper, or you are comfortable just doing, recorded things that can be edited, that's really important to know. The second thing I would say is communicate your career goals with your manager. Again, it's stepping out of your comfort zone. It can be really difficult. For me personally, I spoke to my own manager and I was kind of like, hey, I would, love to do more public speaking. I would love to go to more conferences. I would love to network with diverse women, and those kind of things all align. So something that my own manager did was invite me to the Society of Information Management, to a couple meetings, and I met some really incredible women there. But just communicating that will help them realize, and if there are good managers, there's bad ones too, but if they're a good manager, they will try and help you accomplish not just your professional goals with the business, but your professional goals for your career, and hopefully be able to say, hey, there's a conference coming up. Would you like to speak at that? Or, hey, there's a group that I'm a part of. Would you like to join me? If you don't communicate those needs, they don't know how to meet them. Additionally, find out what the current projects are for marketing and if there are any existing opportunities. Again, sometimes security can be really siloed as a department, but really just reaching out to them, you never know what they could be working on, especially product marketing as well. So for example, they might already be working on messaging for a service or product at your company and talking about the security features. They might already be working on like a guide to talk about, our platform security, and offer to like edit that or review it and say, hey, I think I would have worded this way because it's a little misleading that we have this policy, right? Or this compliance. So it's a really great way to kind of just kind of kick that off and start, is just seeing if there are any existing opportunities to have. The next is to be proactive where possible. So if there is a conference or an event that you want to speak at and it's a little bit a ways away, it's a great time to start that now and just say, hey, I just want to let you know I'm working on a CFP for this event. Are there any resources that I can leverage? And oftentimes marketing will be able to allocate some resources to saying like, hey, yeah, we're going to create a social media post about it, or we'll help you edit your paper, or like I said, polish your slides up. Like not everybody's great at being a good slide presenter. I spent way too much time on this, but that's their job, right? So lean in where you might be weak, they might be really strong. Even just like presenting to them beforehand and being like, hey, can I have some feedback? You know, is the message good for my presentation? They might be able to provide that. And then here are just a few helpful tips to kind of start your journey. The first one is that communication will be key at all stages of the content production, before and after. So oftentimes, you know, I have it on my list that I want to talk about these things this month. The company wants to talk about that. And then I'll reach out to the technical resource. And then kind of beforehand, it's a lot of like ideation, what's possible, what can we do, and giving feedback. So understanding that. Something that I think is really important as well is just respecting each other's domains of expertise as well. So regardless of, you know, gender, we talk a lot about here and stuff, experience level, just respecting that. Because I think oftentimes I've had to dispel some of my own sort of stereotypes I think that people have about like non-technical roles for marketing, and understanding that like I have skills and things that are awesome too. Like I have so much respect for technical people that actually at my organization, I sort of, you know, backed away from the term I'm a technical person at my company, because I'm not writing code. I'm not looking for crazy, you know, artifacts, anything like that. But in my own right, I've kind of learned to apply technical to the marketing stuff that I do. So really just understanding there's exchange of knowledge and skills, and depending on your department, I mean, for me, I'm just a very giving person, but you know, I've helped a lot of analysts at my organization in a personal, professional manner where like they're like, hey, I want to improve my LinkedIn profile before I speak at a conference. Can you do that? Yeah, like let's rewrite your bio. Let's make sure your job description looks good. Let's make sure your headshot is optimized. Let's make sure the, you know, headshot that you're sending to the conference looks good. All those kinds of things, right? So just respecting the expertise of both departments, I think is really important to remember. Another thing is to maintain a team mindset. Something I was just talking to someone at lunch about was cybersecurity is so team-based, right? Like we talk about like red teaming, blue teaming, things like that, but really like team as a whole organization. So I say like, don't be selfish. Be selfish in the fact that you want to promote yourself and get yourself out there, but don't be selfish in the fact that it's a team effort to get anything made. And that's truly how I feel about marketing as well. I wouldn't be able to produce any of the cool content that we put out, technical content, without the expertise of the analysts, right? But also they wouldn't be able to look and sound cool without me. Another thing is to be patient. I think something that I've learned is that people who are technical at my organization are used to things being done really quickly, especially because they're just remediating IRs. Like their whole thing is lead, speed, and getting things done, right? But oftentimes marketing is really polished. So just understanding that sometimes it can take weeks or months for a content to actually come to fruition and then be distributed out. But just check in with them, be like, hey, where are we at with this? That's totally within your right to do. But just understanding that it can take a time for things to kind of get through the processes, but just know that it does happen. Another tip I would have is just keep an idea list. I like to keep a running idea list for myself. And then when I meet with colleagues or leadership, I bring those up at the right times. But it's good to kind of have a list and a couple different options of ways you could approach a problem, right? So for an article, you could say, you know, I want to write this article, and someone might be like, oh, well, that's more of a shorter form social media post or something like that. Just kind of having a whole list of ideas to kind of come with will be good, and not to be too attached to one idea because it could change over time. And lastly, work on your public profiles before approaching this project. I know it can be difficult. There are a lot of great resources on LinkedIn and online about how to make sure your profiles are kind of optimized. So whether you're like looking for a job or you have a job, there's lots of ways to kind of work on your networking and branding. Personally, LinkedIn is one of my favorites, especially if you are in, you know, a B2B setting looking to grow your network. And that's all the content I have. So I'm happy to answer any questions or take any feedback. Any questions, comments, concerns? I was a journalist for a couple of years. So I went to school for journalism at ASU, and I learned very quickly you don't make a lot of money doing that.